violence in classrooms, and in my point, I'm more focusing on things such as school shootings. That's my main focus, because that is in school violence in general. But I kind of decided to focus on a couple of school shootings to go along with my presentation. So unfortunately, violence is on the rise in nearly every state across our nation. So it's a scary fact, but it is something that we are noticing, and every day. I don't even watch the news a lot, but when you do turn on the news, you do see students, students, and even just people in general in the public, committing, crimes that we wouldn't, you wouldn't even think that you have to worry about them, but they're just coming about. So according to reports, an astonishing 160 school shootings have occurred across America since 2013. That is a very high number for, for a 2-year period. The outbreak of school shootings shine the light on the problem of youth violence. So, and up until school shootings started happening, I should say, up until they started happening a lot, people were like, yeah, kids are bullied, kids are this, kids are that, kids will be kids. But it wasn't until, something drastic happened that was like kind of an eye-opener for the general public, was like, hey, this is a real problem. So question I have for you, so do you think there is a problem with these tragedies gaining so much national attention? And what I'm talking about there is, like I said, every day you turn on the news, when things like the Columbine shooting that I'll talk about later in my presentation, when that happened, did you think that led to another shooting later on, or will it, just being able to gain that national attention? Do you think that these students at risk, these like rampage shooters, is that the kind of attention that they think is the only way they are going to be able to get attention? So according to the USA Today, on average there's a mass killing somewhere in America every 2 weeks. And, this was kind of a scary statistic to read, out of our textbook. But I mean, like I said, it's just something that we're finding more prevalent, and just a couple things to note. One thing that I thought about going through this, finding all this information, a lot of it's just built up. I feel, especially in youth, it's just built up, anger, hate, whatever, from what maybe like an event that happened in their life that they just haven't settled with. It just has built up, and they just, need an outlet and don't know where to go, basically. So I found this research group, and it's called Everytown Research. So they did a school shooting report, and if you look at this map right here on the screen, it shows school shootings from December 15th, 2012 to December 9th, 2014. And we'll switch back to that in just a second, after I share some information with you. So when you hear about a school shooting, are you inclined to assume the worst, and that someone intentionally threatened or took the lives of others? So what I'm really trying to get you thinking about here is it always intentional? School shooting, you hear that, and believe me, I'm guilty of it too. Whenever I hear school shooting, I'm like, oh my gosh, someone intentionally meant to hurt someone. But according to this Everytown, which is, like I said, it's a gun safety organization, and they really came about, after when all this like gun violence stuff started happening, to try to, protect the rights of people that have guns and everything, but just in order to, raise awareness and raise safety awareness rather. So what they define a school shooting as is a very broad term, I would say. So it is any time a firearm is discharged inside a school building or on a school campus or grounds, as documented by the press and confirmed through further inquiries with law enforcement. So basically, in short, this is really saying every time a gun is fired on campus, and the news reporters show up and report on it. That's basically what's happening. One thing that I um, thought about in this too, why would there be, um, why would kids be bringing guns to school in the first place? Why would there's not any need for a gun to be brought to school. That was just kind of a red flag to me. Like I said, I surprised myself because when you do hear the word shooting, it's only you would think negatively. There were actually, in a couple of the cases that I've read, and in this report from every town, a couple of them were actually accidental. But again, why are kids bringing guns to school? So I chose to focus on two main events, and then just since the last one is fairly recent, in the last 2 years, that information is kind of fresh in everyone's mind. So I just, for the sake of time, I decided to focus my time on the Columbine shooting at Coleman High School, and also the Virginia Tech shooting at Virginia Tech University. The Columbine High School shooting happened in Littleton, Colorado. It took place on April 20th, 1999. So the news of this rocked the nation, resulting in a great deal of uneasy feelings, and was deemed the worst school shooting in U.S. history. And this was up until this point. That is the worst. So schools are supposed to be, we just think of school as a safe place for us to go learn. When we have kids someday, if you have kids yourself already, you just feel like, you protect them as much as you can at home, so you would, want that same protection for them while they're at school. But unfortunately, like I said, school shootings are happening way more often than we would like. So the people that were involved in this were the shooter's name. Were Eric Harris, and he was 18 years old, and then a 17-year-old Dylan Klebold. And as we said above, whenever how it rocked the nation, this was actually the start of gun control issues. I mean, everyone, no matter if you're for or against, you can basically, what's going on right now, gun control and everything like that. So that was like really the start of it, was this case here. So this massacre killed 13 students, wounded 20 others, and then the attackers, both boys, actually killed themselves after they killed and injured the others. So one thing that was looked at, one of the causes was looked at, why did this happen? There was reports that said the bullying by others in the school is thought to have led to this, this tragedy. And like I said before, sometimes school officials, they weren't, always, they didn't think that they always had to worry about things like this, such extreme events happening like this. But if bullying's not taken care of the way it should be, and if students aren't letting people know that they're getting bullied, and they just bottle up all those feelings, this is one thing that can happen. So the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history took place on April 16th, 2007, when a gunman killed 32 people before killing himself at Virginia Tech. This was a public university in Blacksburg, Virginia. Now, if you remember from this slide before this, it said that the Columbine shooting was the was the worst high school shooting. Well, notice that this is 1999 when the Columbine shooting happened. Now they're saying that this 2007 shooting at Virginia Tech has actually beat out the Columbine high school shooting. And it actually has the place for the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. This happened, like I said, at Virginia Tech University on April 16th, 2007. It claimed the life of 32 students and teachers combined. The shooter, he was actually, they said that he was a South Korean native, but he was actually on a resident visa. He actually got a resident visa to come and be a U.S. citizen. He was a senior at the time, and so he was previously evaluated regarding suicidal remarks in 2005. So this was 2 years prior, obviously, to the actual shooting. The reports were saying that he actually made the suicidal remarks to his roommate, and his roommate, did the right thing, went and reported it and whatnot, and they thought, after evaluating him, everything was fine and dandy, they had nothing else to worry about. So, a couple little tidbits of information. So, the day that it happened, Cho, I think that's how you say his last name, he mailed a package to CNN containing photos and information on the shootings. So it was saying that 2 students, by this time when he mailed the package, 2 students were actually dead by this time. The first 2 students were actually dead. And then, interestingly enough, the news station didn't even receive the package until 2 days later because of processing errors. And so they actually, didn't, they had no idea that they were, really that they were coming. Or that any more, any more, he planned on killing any more students or teachers alike. So there's not one single factor responsible for school violence. There's like a bunch of factors that kind of intertwine on each other. So in the 2009-2010 academic year, there was 17 homicides. That was according to the CDC. And then also, because murders at school occur rarely, a single event like the rampage killings at Sandy Hook Elementary can greatly affect the statistics. And I thought this was interesting that our book mentioned this because, like it said, murders, you expect the school to be a safe environment for kids, and so when a murder happens, it really throws the numbers off as far as statistics for schools, rampage killings and school shootings, things like that. Okay. Alright, so here's a couple of facts about that I found mostly in our book about violence and related to school shootings and everything like that. So in a 1996 survey, 47% of teens responded that they thought violence was increasing in schools, with 10% reporting that they feared a classmate would shoot them. Now, this is a scary thing because, like I said, you go to school, you and I both went through high school, been to college, you go to class every day, and the first thing on your mind, you don't want that to be, am I going to make it out of class alive today? And certainly we don't want kids, fearing school for that reason either. So from February 1997 until April 1999, there was 8 incidents of mass school shootings with at least 32 deaths. Another very alarming number. So most prevention programs, they follow the public health prevention model of primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention. And I believe we talked about this in our in some previous modules, but just a little recap of the information. So primary prevention programs identify characteristics that increase the risk of the public health problem and intervene with large heterogeneous groups through education or behavioral change. Secondary prevention programs identify individuals or groups of people at risk for specific problem and target them for intervention. And then tertiary prevention programs attempt to limit the reoccurrence of a problem or further deterioration of people exhibiting symptoms of a public health problem. Alright, so a couple things, as you know, like I said, I don't expect you, obviously, to answer these questions, but if you have any thoughts on it, please feel free to include those whenever, if you do decide to watch my presentation and include it in your, for your assignment next module. So where are these children learning behaviors? We all know that, pretty much, monkey see, monkey do. So if you see something, at some point they're gonna try to, try to mimic it. So why and how are guns even being brought on campus? Like I said before, some of those cases on that map that I showed you a couple slides ago, they showed all of the incidences of school shootings. Some of them weren't intentional, but again, why are guns even being brought on campus? How are they being brought? So is there a problem with education on firearms and firearm safety? And this kind of goes along with gun control. Like I said, obviously it's a very, very, very touchy subject, so I don't really want to get into that too much. But again, this is gun related, so it is something to think about. And then lastly, so why are these youth acting out in such extreme ways? Okay, so factors identifying youth at risk. A couple of things. So in the book, it talks about the histories of traumatized rampage killers. So it says it includes maybe having a parent incarcerated. And before I get too far, I don't want y'all to think that these are the only things, or this is targeting any one person. It's just things that they have actually found and studied that are characteristics of the individuals that have been involved in a school shooting. So maybe demonstrating violent behaviors using a gun. So having discontinuous parenting because of placement in foster care. Might be some resentment toward the parent. Again, don't really know where to go. Don't really know where to go, so they just, find the quickest outlet and easiest way out, pretty much. Experiencing a history of child abuse, again, resentment toward the parent. If they haven't got counseling or whatever, if they haven't got the help that they need throughout the years, and they just got those feelings bottled up, and that could lead it to. And interestingly enough, it actually said that these individuals didn't show any signs of psychosis or lack of conscience. And it's kind of scary that you don't find out about these kind of people, or find out about their problems really until it is too late, and things like the Columbine shooting and Sandy Hook, and then also Virginia Tech shooting happened. And then another little information add is they found most of them to be socially awkward, so they wouldn't, if they're socially awkward, they wouldn't voluntarily go to talk to a counselor or something like that, or they wouldn't have many friends, things like that. So a couple things, I'm trying to remember what page our book talks about it on, but here are the prevention programs. Talks about prevention programs, and says there's 9 key elements. Okay, so 9 key elements for success identified by the Multi-Site Violent Prevention Project. And this is found in our book on page 343. And I'll quickly just go through them again. If you have more interest in it, you can go back and look a little more into it yourself. So the first one is clear policies, clear and consistent policies. So they should promote, peaceful resolution to problems and discourage violence, which a lot of us can relate. I can remember going through many assemblies about bullying and things that you shouldn't do related to violence. Skills training. What made me, or what one thing I thought about going through this was when I was in school. I believe it was elementary and maybe a little bit of middle school. We had what was called coping skills, and we had one of our counselors actually come in, and she would talk to us about different coping skills, and it was just one way that my school decided to incorporate skills about conflict resolution, things like that, peer pressure, your listening skills, just different different things that you encounter during a normal school day. It also said it should have it contains a comprehensive multimodal approach. Sorry about that. So this involves communities, law enforcement, school personnel. So it has a lot of perspectives per se, from different people in the community for the children to look up to and learn things from. So coordination of programs within and outside of school. This is mainly talking about, the violence prevention programs, give them some place to go after school, to go after school so they wouldn't, so they could stay out of trouble. Number 5, changes to the physical plant. This is talking about, putting fences up, having higher security, things like that on school campuses. That way, it's harder for these things to happen. And I know at least right now I substitute in the school district here in Killeen, and they actually, they're actually a lot more strict than my school was. As far as, you go in, they actually take your picture for an ID as soon as you walk in, and you wear that ID, the rest of the day. Each student, too, has an ID that they're required to wear every single day. Number 6, should contain at least 10 to 20 sessions to make sure, it's covering all the bases. Number 7, training the entire school staff, parents, and community. And this kind of goes along with multimodal approaches, but also, how to react in certain situations, who should be involved in what, just different things like that. Number 8, multiple teaching methods. This is where we are talking about, some kids might get frustrated about, about school, and that might be some of their problems, but just using those multiple teaching methods to reach all the students. Okay, and then also the last one is sensitivity to school and community culture. I know a couple units back we did talk about the importance of, considering culture, that all cultures are different, and, each culture has their own characteristics, and so we have to watch, we have to be aware of those as well in prevention programs and any other prevention aims. Alright, intervention, and I found this in the book as well. So according to Capuzzi and Gross, the authors of our books, the interventions these interventions in schools should happen, and they should include the following: to increase school security, like I said, that example I shared with the badges, having students wear them all the time. Zero tolerance policies. This could be for bullying, drugs, whatnot. And one thing to put out there about the zero tolerance policy, it's maybe sort of unrelated to what we're talking about right now, as far as school shootings, but one thing that one of the schools does, and I'm sure a lot of the school districts do this, but is that if a student is failing a class, they actually call them down and they get drug tested, which to me, middle school is a little early, I feel, because thinking back about my middle school years, it's something that I don't think we had to worry about as often. But I don't want to get too far off topic with that. Anyway, so school climate reform. This is again, encouraging a positive environment, things like that. Social skills training goes back to what I said about the whole coping skills. Pretty much just learning, helping students learn about, how to deal with their feelings, how to deal with bullying, who to go to, things like that. Peer mediation, parent training, very important, obviously. So that way they're not only learning it in school, they're also, learning outside of school. And then also the creation of a threat assessment team. So this would basically be, when something happens or if there is a threat, they would get to, sit down and talk about it and, talk about if it's really something that they need to worry about or look more into to prevent something from happening again or in general, first of all. One thing that our authors said, so this must be evidence-based, all of this must be evidence-based in order to be, to be effective. Okay, so I promise I'm almost done. I do realize I have gone a little bit longer than we were supposed to, but it's kind of hard to fit all this good information about this topic. All of the details about it in such little time. So some of the things that I thought about the effects on youth witnesses to violence. So maybe they have fear, maybe fear of going to school because they got picked on, guilt, and guilt is more so talking about maybe when after something happens, after some violence occurs at school, maybe they felt that they weren't there enough for their friend that got picked on or things like that. So that could lead to some problems. Also, they could end up with post-traumatic stress disorder, and a lot of times we hear about this with military personnel, but it's more prevalent than we think about today. They might end up with psychological problems. Maybe they're just scared out of their mind, as they should be. If something were big or anything were to happen to them during school, they might end up, with anxiety or nervousness in public, just things like that. And I mean, like I said, the list can go on, and I could go on and on about this topic, but those are just some the information that I felt was important to share with you on this topic. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, email me, and then I also look forward to hearing from y'all. If you have anything, or if you care to include me in your in one of your presentations to watch for next module's assignment. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.